Good morning. Today we will learn about module 3 of our paper, methodology and perspectives of physics. So I'll be dealing with that paper, methodology and perspectives of physics. In that, it has got three modules: module 1, module 2, and module 3. Uh, so uh, uh, in that, I will be teaching you module 1 and module 3. And module 3 is about experimental methods and error analysis. Now this is the first class on module 3. Now the first half of this module actually deals with experimental methods and measuring instruments, and the second half of the module deals with error analysis. Now today we'll start with the first half of module 3, which is actually dealing with the measuring instruments. Okay, so measuring instrument is nothing but a device for measuring some physical quantity. And now, what is measurement? Measurement is a process of detecting an unknown physical quantity using a standard. That is, if you want to measure an unknown physical quantity, you will need a standard. So based on that standard, you will be able to detect, and as well as you will be able to measure that unknown physical quantity that's given to you. So measurement is the activity of obtaining and comparing physical quantities of real world objects and events. Okay, now this will be more clear if you go through this example. Suppose that you are asked to measure the length of a book. For that you need a scale or ruler, okay, as a standard. Once you have the scale, you will be able to measure the length of the book. So the various simple steps that was involved while you are measuring the length of the book are as follows. That is the unknown physical quantity. What was it? It was the length of the book. Now what was the standard given to you? It was the ruler or the scale. And using that scale, you have measured the magnitude as 20. And what was that 20? To specify 20, you put a unit, and that was in centimeter. And now the result of the measurement was that the length of the book was 20 centimeters. So these small simple steps were involved while you are measuring the length of the book. So while measuring, there may be some errors and all, maybe an instrumental error or manual error. Okay, so in this slide, what you have to study is what is measurement and what is a measuring instrument. So measurement is a process of detecting an unknown physical quantity using a standard, while a measuring instrument is a device for measuring some physical quantity. Next is about the least count. Least count of an instrument is nothing but the smallest measurement that can be taken accurately with it. Okay, the small, if you have an instrument with you, its least count will be the smallest measurement that you can measure with it. For example, a meter scale. You know how a meter scale will look like. It will be numbered as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 like that, and in between there will be 10 divisions. So each division will be 1 minus 2 or 2 minus 3, that is 1, divided by, that is difference between the main scale divisions, divided by number of divisions in between, that is 10. So 0.1 centimeter. So 0.1 centimeter will be the least count of the meter scale, or 0.1 centimeter will be the least measurement that you can measure using the meter scale. Similarly, you have vernier caliper. It's a device used for measuring the length and breadth of a meter scale or something like that. You will learn about vernier caliper in the coming sessions. Its least count is 0.01 centimeter. Then another one is screw gauge. Screw gauge is also an instrument that is used to measure the thickness of a wire and like that. That also you will learn in the coming sessions. Its least count is found to be 0.001 uh, centimeter. So least count of meter scale is 0.1 centimeter. For vernier caliper it is 0.01 centimeter, and for screw gauge it is 0.001 centimeter. Then you have another instrument, that is spectrometer, which is used to measure angle of prism, and that its least count is found to be 1 minute or half minute. Since you are measuring angle, it will be in minutes. The least count will be described in minutes. Okay, so now comes the definition for least count. Least count of an instrument is the ratio of the value of one division on main scale, that is one main scale division, to number of divisions on vernier or head scale, that is a ratio one main scale division to number of divisions on vernier. That is the expression for least count, LC. Okay, mathematical expression. Now, suppose that you take the case of a screw gauge. It has got two scales. One is a pitch scale and the other is a head scale. On a head scale, you have got 100 divisions, and then in pitch scale is marked as 1 millimeter, 2 millimeter, like that. So, when the head scale makes 100 rotations, then the pitch scale will move about by 1 millimeter. So, in that case, what will be the least count of screw gauge? It will be the distance. It will be the distance moved by pitch scale when the head scale rotates by 100 divisions. So that will be 1 millimeter divided by 100, and that will be 0.001 millimeter. Okay, so this is how least count is measured. Now the precision or accuracy of instrument increases with the decrease of least count. Now for measuring length, you can have this length is actually the distance or separation between the two ends of an object. Its unit is meter. So using meter scale, you can measure length from 10 raised to minus 3 meter to 10 raised to 2 meter. Using vernier scale, you can measure length to an accuracy of 10 raised to minus 4 meter, and whereas using screw gauge, you can measure the length to an accuracy of 10 raised to minus 5 meter, etc. Now these instruments like meter scale, vernier scale, screw gauge, etc. are used for measuring small lengths. But what will you do if you want to measure large length or large distances? Then you will use a method called parallax method. I think all of you are familiar with the term parallax. Suppose that you are holding a pencil in front of your eye and suppose that you are looking at that pencil through your left eye by closing the right eye, and then just do the reverse. That is, you just see the pencil through your right eye and just close the left eye. Then what you notice is that you can see that the position of this pencil seems to change. That is called parallax. Okay, I think all of you have noticed this phenomena, parallax. Now the distance between the points where the pencil was seen is called basis. In our case, basis is nothing but the distance between the eyes. Now here they have explained how you can find the distance between a planet S and Earth using parallax method. See the figure 1. See here you can see an S there, and that S is nothing but the planet. This one. Okay, this S is the planet. S is a planet, and A and B are the points of observation on the surface of Earth, and they are separated by a distance of small letter b. Capital letter D is the distance between the planet and the observation points on the surface of Earth, and theta is the angle ASB, and it is called parallax angle. Okay, now as the planet is far away, we know it is very far away from Earth, so b by d is very small compared to 1. So the parallax angle theta is very small. Then in such cases, we approximate the distance AB, this one, as an arc of length small letter b of the circle with the center S. So the distance between the planet and Earth D can be calculated using the formula D is equal to B by theta. This is how the distance between the Earth and planet is calculated, B by theta. Once you measure D, you can also find the diameter or size of the planet. Okay, now if d is the diameter of the planet and alpha is the angular size of the planet, then it is d by d is the angle between the two directions when two diametrically opposite points of the planet are viewed through the telescope. That is, when it is viewed from point A and when it is viewed from point B. So since d is known, diameter of the planet can also be determined. So using parallax method, you can do two things. One is you can measure the distance of a faraway planet from Earth, and also you can measure the angular size of the planet. Next, another instrument that is used for measuring long distances is radar. What is the full form of radar? It is radio detection and ranging. Here it is mainly used for detecting and locating distant objects such as aeroplanes or enemy missiles and like that. So here what you use is radio waves. Radio waves are transmitted through antenna. These waves will hit the distant object and later it will get reflected from that distant object. These reflected radio waves from the distant object is collected using a receiver. And for viewing all this distant objects and all, you have a display screen. Now the distance between the object and receiver is then calculated using the formula d equal to ct by 2, where c is the velocity of radio waves and t is the time interval between transmission and reception of wave pulse. This is a block diagram. Okay, so here you are sending radio waves. Once you see the target, these radio waves hit the target, and from there they will get reflected. This reflected radio waves is received from the is received by the receiver, and once it is received, you can calculate the distance between the object and receiver using the formula d equal to ct by 2. Next is sonar. Okay, so in radar you are using radio waves, whereas in sonar you are using sound waves for detecting and locating distant objects, especially in underwater as in submarine navigation and all. So the full form of sonar is sound navigation and ranging. It is mainly used for navigation purposes too. It uses sound propagation, usually underwater, as in submarine navigation, to navigate, communicate, detect, and locate objects such as submarines or vessels like that. There are two types of sonar. One is passive sonar and the other one is active sonar. Passive sonar means we are actually listening to the sound produced by the vessel or submarine, whereas in active sonar we are actually listening to the reflected sound waves from the target. These reflected sound waves are called by the name echoes. Now these echoes will be the characteristics of the target that is located. Okay. Now that is in active sonar, the sound pulses that is sent is called by the name ping, P-I-N-G. Okay. It is called by the name ping, and later using a sonar projector, and then we listen to the echoes for the pulse. Now let us see what are the components of an active sonar. It consists of a signal generator, power amplifier, and an electroacoustic transducer. What is a transducer? It is a device which can transmit and receive acoustic signals. Okay, later a beam is used to collimate the sound waves, and a collimator is used to converge it into a single beam, and then it is sent to distant objects. So first of all, this active sonar send the sound pulses that is called by the name ping. They will hit the target, and later this reflected sound waves or echoes will come back and it will be received at the receiver, and finally we measure the distance to an object. uh, the time between the transmission and reception of the pulse is measured, and from that we calculate the distance provided we know the speed of sound. So passive sonar is actually just it is listening to the sound produced by the vessel, whereas in active sonar we are listening to the reflected sound wave or echo, and this echo will is further analyzed to get an idea about the distant object. Okay. Next one is laser rangefinder. As the name suggests, here laser beams are used for detecting the distance to an object. And here laser pulse is sent towards the object, and we measure the time taken by the laser pulse to be reflected off from the target and return to the center. Knowing the speed of laser, distance object can be calculated using the formula Ct by 2, where C is the speed of laser beam and T is the time taken for round trip. Means time taken for the laser pulse to hit the target and come back to the receiver. So here in radar we have used radio waves, in sonar we have used sound waves, whereas in laser rangefinder we are using laser beam. It is sent to the distant object. It will hit the distant object. From there it will get reflected, and once it comes back to the receiver, we measure the distance of the object using the formula Ct by T, where C is the speed of laser beam and T is the time taken for the laser beam to make one complete travel, that is to travel to the object and come back to the receiver. Now the laser beam is very narrow, but however when it travels over long distances, there are chances for it to get spread. At the same time they will also be disturbed by some atmospheric disturbance and then winds and all, so there are chances for it to get diverged, and so the accuracy of measurement of distance using this laser range method is very poor. At the same time there are chances for laser to get reflected by obstacles present in the path, like the branches of trees or some any other obstacles that are closer than the object. So in such cases and all, the distance that we measure using this method will be of poor accuracy. And using this method, the maximum distance that you can measure with an accuracy is about 2 kilometer to 25 kilometer. Okay. Now the last one is Global Positioning System, GPS, which you are all familiar. So I'm not going into much details of it. You can just go through it. So it is purely based on satellites, right? It is a satellite-based navigation system consisting of 27 Earth orbiting satellites. And these satellites are constantly in motion, and their speed is about 2.6 kilometer per second. And while doing so, they complete two complete orbits around the Earth in just 24 hours. This system was discovered in 1993, and those GPS satellites are referred to as now star satellites. The weight of each satellite is 1 ton, and that is, it's very heavy, and it has got solar panels fitted to it, and the length up to which the solar panels spread is about 5 meters. It uses frequencies of about, that is, GPS satellites uses a frequency in the megahertz range, that is about 1575.42 megahertz, and their lifetime is only 10 years. And then they carry some cesium and rubidium atomic clocks just to give us information, or to just to get us updated about their current position and all. Then they are usually placed 60 degrees north and 60 degrees south latitudes. And one of the most important peculiarity of GPS is that it can work under all weather conditions. Now GPS signal, when you come across a GPS signal, you can see that that particular GPS signal will have three parts. One is pseudo random code, that is, it is nothing but an ID code. See, that is why you need an ID code, just to identify from which satellite the signal is coming. Okay, so just to identify the satellite, each of this GPS signal will have a pseudo random code, and it tells us, or it gives us information about which satellite is still sending the information. Thus another one is the FMS data. It gives us information about the status of satellite, that is the current date, time, etc. And the last one is almanac data, and it tells us where the satellite should be at any time throughout the day, that is location, that is where it should be throughout the day. So the GPS signal has got three parts: pseudo random code, which tells us about which satellite is transmitting, then FMS data, which tells us about the satellite status, and almanac data, which tells us about where the satellite should be, that is where it should be at any time throughout the day. Okay, now so the working of GPS is as follows. GPS satellites broadcast radio signals providing their location, status, and precise time. GPS or radio signals travel through space at the speed of light. GPS device receives radio signal and uses these to calculate distance from each satellite. Then the last one is, once a GPS device knows its distance from at least three satellites, it can use geometry to determine its location on Earth. So to calculate the distance from satellite, GPS device use the formula distance equal to velocity into time. This one. Okay, where where velocity is c and time is how the signal travel through space. Now some of the advantages is that of GPS is that it's an affordable technology, because we need only a GPS receiver, which itself is very simple and easy to install, and the GPS can also work under all weather and lightning conditions. The only limitation is that the radio waves of GPS are obstructed by tall buildings, mountains, trees and all, and so regular GPS cannot pinpoint locations to greater than 3-meter accuracy. So since they are obstructed by such obstacles on surface of Earth, the accuracy of determining the distance and all will be poor. Okay, so the session is enough for today. So about regard, so this was actually the first half of our module 3. So I will be uploading the full notes on the first half of module 3 dealing with measuring instruments, and from that uploaded notes, that is, I will be uploading in SNMC virtual, and from those uploaded notes I will be taking class each week. Okay. uh, so just go through it. It's nothing much complicated, it's very easy to learn. So in this all these things are very important, especially how this radar, sonar and all works about GPS, and also just go through it. Okay. uh, okay, thank you.